Hi, welcome to Drawing Club. Today we're drawing Sir Small. This is Sir Small, and to draw Sir Small, you will need a pencil and an eraser to erase any mistakes, and maybe a pencil sharpener. And you'll need a black marker or a black pencil crayon at the end to outline after you've used your pencil. But as usual, I'm going to use a gray marker just so you guys can see what I'm doing a little bit easier. Okay. So to start Sir Small, we're going to draw a kind of rounded rectangle. So I'm going to do a rounded line like this. This helmet he's wearing is a little bit like a bucket. And another one like this. And then a curving line for the bottom of the helmet. And then a curving line for the top of the helmet. And then to make it look kind of 3D, we'll just do another curving line around the top like that. And remember, if I'm drawing too quickly, you can always pause the video and catch up. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to draw a kind of another sort of barrel shape just for the whole of Sir Small's body. Just like that. Okay. And I think the last shape we'll do that's important is this big shield. So it's going to cross over into his body a little bit. I'm just going to do... If you've ever seen the Superman logo, it's kind of the same shape. It's like a triangle, but every line is a curving line. Then one more, bring it back down to there. Okay. And we'll do, you know what, let's finish this shield. We'll do the inside part next. So you're going to follow exactly the same line you did, the same shape, but just a little further into the shield. And mine is not turning out perfect, and that is fine. I never make a perfect drawing, so I've learned not to worry about this. And you know what? Since we're here, why don't we just finish this shield completely? So I'm just going to draw with little bumpy lines, like a cloud. I'm going to draw that tree. It's actually an oak tree, and I sort of copied it a little bit, or was inspired by the oak tree that's on the flag for Prince Edward Island. I think it's a cool symbol to have on a flag for a province of Canada. And if you've ever seen the flag of Prince Edward Island, you know that there's actually 3 smaller oak trees on there as well. And there are some acorns in the tree, but I've left them out to make this a little bit easier to draw. But basically anything that looks like a tree is fine. Don't worry about making it look exactly like mine. As long as it's kind of a fluffy looking shape, it will be good. And then the tree trunk, like this. And I'm just going to do a couple of little U shapes to make where those branches are. And then a few little shapes that almost look like octopus legs for the roots of the tree. And then there's a little patch of grass. This is the same on the PEI flag. There's a little patch of grass. So I'm just going to make a shape. It doesn't really have to look like anything, just to show where that grass is. Okay. For Sir Small's arm, I think I'm going to make his armored shoulder pad here. Just like that. And then his arm, just a little curving line. And then he's got a gloved hand behind his back. So I'm just going to do that to show that that arm is behind the back. And on the other side, there's another shoulder pad, but I just need to show a little part of it because it's hiding behind that shield. He's got this big sort of T-shape opening in his helmet. So I'm just going to basically make like I'm making a giant uppercase T here. like a big block letter. Just like that. And then I'm going to make a thinner one inside it. So I'm just going to follow my lines as carefully as I can. They won't be perfect. See, there's a little bump there, but that is fine. Especially when you're working with the pencil, you really don't have to worry too much about making things perfect. You can erase and you can try again, or you can change things, and then it's when you're using your black marker or your black pencil crayon, that's when you have to be a little bit more careful, because we can't really erase those. So the eyes are just these kind of half circle shapes to show that Sir Small is smiling inside that helmet. Just like that. He's wearing a belt, so I'm going to put 2 lines here for the belt, and another line just going outside of his... he's wearing some armor, something called kind of like a chainmail armor, and I'll put 2 little loops for his belt there, 2 little circles. And he's got a big belt buckle, so I'm just going to draw a big square sort of a shape, and then a smaller one inside of it, like that, and then 2 more lines for the rest of the belt, and 1 more little circle. And then he's got these sort of, as I said, these plates in his armor that sort of look like maybe like a chainmail. I'm just basically going to draw a bunch of these sort of U shapes all together to make that armor. I'm going to do it again underneath. I'm doing it a bit outside of the shape of the body I made, which is fine. And I'm trying to make them close to the same size, but it really doesn't matter that much if they're not all the same size. Just as long as it gives the idea or the feeling of armor. And then a couple more. This one I'm going to try to not go into the belt, so I'm just going to do little curving lines, because it's hidden behind the belt. And then the bottom ones, just again, a bunch of these U shapes. Like that. I'm going to leave a little gap, and then put some more there. For Sir Small's legs, you know what, let's do the feet first actually. So I'm going to put 1 foot right here, just a kind of almost like a circle-y kind of shape there, and then 1 right next to it, like that. And then for the legs, I'm just going to put a line up from the foot, a line across, and then a line back down. And I think that's all we need to do with our pencil for Sir Small. I think the rest of it we'll do with our black marker or our black pencil crayon for outlining with. So I don't know if you saw last week's Magnet Ape, but when we did Magnet Ape, I told a story as I was doing this part about Magnet Ape. So today we're going to do our second drawing club story, and this one will be about the story of Sir Small. And Sir Small lived in a place called Big Kingdom. And the king of Big Kingdom was King Hugh G. Normus. And Hugh G. Normus was a big king. He was a tall man. He had broad shoulders. He had a big, fiery red beard. And he liked to laugh. And he liked especially to watch his knights do something called jousting. And you might have seen this in movies or seen it in books before, but jousting is a kind of game that knights like to play where they got on their horses and they had these long kind of like sticks, which are called I've completely forgotten the name. Lances, that's it. They're called lances. And they would run at each other really fast on the horses and try to knock the other knight off the horse with their lance. And it was, King Hugh G. Normus's favorite thing to do would be to watch his knights do this. But unfortunately, something had started to happen. This dragon called Neville, who lived nearby the kingdom, had started to come and attack the jousts and chase the knights off and breathe fire. And it started to make the king really, really angry. And so he went to the captain of his guard. And the captain of the royal guard was an even bigger knight. He was even bigger than King Huge Enormous. His name was Sir Maximus Glutz. And he was an enormous man. And he was, kind of full of himself. He really thought he was a great knight. He was the best knight. And for a long time, Sir Small, who was not the biggest knight in Big Kingdom, he was in fact the smallest knight. Sir Small had been trying to join the Royal Guard because, he was a very brave knight. He was a very good knight. But every time he went to talk to Sir Maximus Glutz about the situation, Sir Maximus Glutz just kind of laughed at him and said, "Ha ha ha, don't be ridiculous, Sir Small. You're much too little to be in the Royal Guard. We need only the biggest knights and the bravest knights and the strongest knights." And Sir Small, tried to explain. He said, "Look, I know that I'm not the biggest knight, but I believe that I am one of the strongest knights, and I believe that I am one of the bravest knights." But no matter what he said, Sir Maximus Glutz wouldn't give him a chance to try out for the Royal Guard. And so Sir Small was understandably frustrated and irritated that he wasn't being given the chance. But in any case, so Neville the Dragon was coming every afternoon and chasing all of the knights away from the joust, chasing the king back to the castle, breathing fire and creating problems. And so the king had been asking Sir Maximus to deal with it, so Sir Maximus had been sending his knights. And one after another, these big knights went out to try to face Neville the Dragon, and one after another, they came back, terrified. Neville had chased them all around the kingdom. They were toasted in their armor. They were, he whipped them with his tail, and some of them came back and they were crying. It was, it was a terrible scene. And Sir Maximus started to get a little bit worried, and he started to think that any day now the king was going to come to him and ask him to go and fight Neville. And so he came to Sir Small and he said, "Look, Sir Small, I know that in the past I haven't given you really, a chance to show me, just what a strong and brave knight you are, but I feel like now is the time. I think, I really think it will be a good time for you to go and show everyone in the kingdom just how strong and brave you are. So, if you wouldn't mind, maybe tomorrow afternoon, if you could go and, if you could just go and fight and chase away that awful dragon that's been ruining our fun jousts." And so Sir Small, looked at Sir Glutz and said, "You know what? Okay, I will do it. But, I would rather not go in the afternoon. If you don't mind, I think I would rather go and face that dragon at night." And Sir Glutz said, "That sounds fine to me. Really, whenever you want to do it, just go and take care of that problem for us." So Sir Small packed up his horse and he grabbed his shield and he made a choice. He decided not to take his sword because he'd been noticing that every time the knights took their swords and tried to fight with Neville the Dragon, they really seemed to not do very well. The dragon basically burned all their clothes off, burned all their armor off, and kind of embarrassed them. So Sir Small had also noticed something else. He had a feeling that a long time ago he had read something in a book that explained a little bit about the habits of dragons. And he had a feeling that dragons slept during the day, and that they actually did all of their eating and hunting and all of their living at night, that they were something called nocturnal. And so Sir Small rode up to the dragon's cave and looked inside. And sure enough, he was right. It was nighttime. The dragon was awake, was sitting there by his hoard of gold and jewels and just quietly reading a book. And Sir Small walked into the cave and said, hello, Neville? And Neville looked around and was surprised to see a knight in his cave, because, when the knights came, they usually looked a little different. They were usually a little bit taller, and they usually had a big sword with them. And he said, so he decided he would give Neville a chance to explain what he was doing there, instead of just, as he would normally do, roast him where he was standing. So Sir Neville said, it's not Sir Neville, sorry. Sir Small said to Neville the Dragon, am I right in thinking that you sleep during the day? And Neville the Dragon said, yeah, no, that's true. I do sleep during the day. And Sir Small said, well, so is that why you've been attacking the joust? Is it because it's keeping you awake? It's too noisy? And Neville said, oh, yes, exactly. That's exactly why I've been attacking the joust. It drives me crazy. I've just gotten down to sleep, and suddenly there's this awful smashing and bashing and crashing of these armored knights smashing into each other, and it drives me crazy. I don't do very well when I don't get a good night's sleep. So Sir Small said, well, what if I was able to fix it so that, the knights, you couldn't hear it anymore, so that so that it just wasn't a problem for you? And so Neville said, well, that sounds great. I mean, I'd have no problems then. So then you'd promise me that you wouldn't come back to our kingdom anymore. You wouldn't, make any problems. You wouldn't attack the jousts if you couldn't hear them. And Neville said, no, I certainly wouldn't. That sounds great. So luckily, Neville had this idea. Sorry, not Neville. Sir Small had this idea before he came to the cave, and he had brought with him 2 pillows that were just big enough to fit inside Neville the Dragon's ears. And he showed Neville how to put them in, and how they perfectly took all of that sound away. And Neville was so happy that he gave Sir Small a big hug. And he wrote a note that Sir Small could take back with him to the king to say that he would never, ever come anywhere near the castle again, or chase the king, or be any more of a problem to them, and they could have all the jousts they wanted. So Sir Small came back to the kingdom. The king saw the letter, and instead of I'm just finishing this. So, Sir Maximus Glutz had hoped to talk to Sir Small before he had a chance to talk to the king, but luckily he was too busy working out in the gym, and he didn't notice Sir Small come back to the kingdom. And so when the king realized that Sir Small had solved the problem, he was so happy that he made Sir Small made Sir Small the head of the royal guard, and Sir Maximus Glutz was very disappointed. And that's the end of this story that I just made up. It's hard to make up a story as you draw. Anyway, I did my best. So here is Sir Small again. I colored the tree green, the trunk brown. I gave him sort of an orangey red border around the shield, purple for his leggings and for his arms, brown kind of leather color for his boots and for his gloves, and then a kind of gray, silvery, purpley color for his helmet and his armor. And I gave his chainmail a kind of a bluey gray look. But of course, you can change the colors to anything you'd like. All right, thanks for listening. Talk to you guys again.